Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
GrokTALK.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
GrokTALK.
Donald Trump leads the race for the Republican nomination in New Hampshire, while Bernie Sanders edges Hillary Clinton among Democrats. That, according to the latest Fox News poll released Wednesday and conducted since Friday's terrorist attacks in Paris. Trump leads with 27% of New Hampshire Republican primary voters. Marco Rubio receives the support of 13%, just above Ted Cruz at 11%. That's it for the double-digit candidates. Jeb Bush and Ben Carson garner 9%, each followed by John Kasich at 7% and Chris Christie at 6%. GOP National Committeeman Steve Dupree should be happy to know that his support for Planned Parenthood will not be wasted. CNN reports that Planned Parenthood is planning to spend at least $20 million fighting Republicans at the ballot box next year as the group punches back against GOP efforts to end its federal funding. The group is planning to focus on the White House and Senate races in a few key states, including New Hampshire, Ohio, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. The states not only have potentially competitive Senate races, but are also key swing states on the presidential map. The $20 million will be spent on a mix of volunteer and activist organizing in each state and advertising. New Hampshire Republican National Committeeman Steve Dupree deliberately attended a Planned Parenthood Northern New England, New Hampshire Action fundraiser last spring and is a self-admitted Planned Parenthood supporter. The New Hampshire Union Leader is reporting that an American teenager killed in an attack in the West Bank on Thursday had a New Hampshire connection. Many years as a camper and counselor at Camp Yavna in Northwood. Ezra Schwartz, an 18-year-old from Sharon, Mass., was one of 3 people who died when a Palestinian man fired a submachine gun from his car and then drove intentionally into pedestrians. 2 others were killed Thursday in the stabbing attack in Tel Aviv. From Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Black Lives Matter students at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill recently commandeered a town hall meeting to read off a list of 50 bizarre demands from free education for all to the abolition of the school's police forces. ABC 11 reports a mob of UNC Black Lives Matter students descended on a town hall meeting Thursday called to discuss race relations and condemned the unethical institution for its treatment of minorities and demanded action from university officials. Read more at eagnews.org. The New York Post reports that a man swinging a samurai sword fought an imaginary duel Friday on the glass spiral staircase of the bustling Apple store on Fifth Avenue in New York City as frightened tourists and computer geeks looked on. Video posted to Instagram shows the swordsman walking up the staircase and then sitting on it while performing pretend lunges and parries for his startled audience at around 3:55 p.m. Eastern Time. He was quickly tackled by Apple security and turned over to police, who took him to Bellevue Hospital for psychiatric examination. From FoxNews.com in Chicago, the first significant wintry storm of the season blanketed parts of the Midwest with a foot of snow and more was on the way Saturday, creating hazardous conditions as some travelers prepared to depart for the Thanksgiving holiday. While winter has not officially begun, the shovels and snowblowers were out from South Dakota through southern Minnesota, Iowa, and southern Wisconsin to northern Illinois and Indiana. The National Weather Service said the snow should continue in Illinois and Indiana on Saturday and move into Michigan. The front will head northeast to Canada late on Saturday and into Sunday. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
Warning, this is not a safe space. I repeat, this is not a safe space.
GrokTALK.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
Good morning, planet Earth. We are broadcasting to you live, for the most part, from the CNHT studios in beautiful Concord, New Hampshire. It is Saturday, November 21st. Thanksgiving is next week. As a reminder, we will not be here next Saturday. We will perhaps put up some program from the past for you to listen to if you must have your GrokTALK fix, but we will be enjoying the holiday weekend with our families. But you're free to enjoy the weekend or do whatever you like. The internet's a big place. There's lots to do. And if you happen to have a spare moment, you want to check out some past programs, you can do so at GrokTALK.com or on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and you can also find our work on YouTube and, of course, Ustream. Today on the program, we will be welcoming a couple of folks. Aaron Day, chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus of New Hampshire, has posed a challenge. If the New Hampshire state Republicans pass Medicaid expansion, then he says he's going to start a third-party bid against Kelly Ayotte to rob votes so that she loses her Senate seat. We'll be talking to him about that. Roger Wilkins, who actually operates out of the office behind us here, is the New Hampshire Director of Concerned Veterans for America, Concerned Veterans for America in New Hampshire. We're going to talk about some VA reform. And then a gentleman we've had on the program before, Jim Simpson. He's an investigative journalist and author of the Red Green Axis. He's going to come in and he's not going to come in. He's going to call in, and we're going to talk to him about refugee resettlement, the current situation with the Syrians, and anything else that happens to come up on that topic. Also expected this morning is Don Ewing, who's going to come fill in at some point, hopefully, and we hope he makes it. We'd love to have him here. And, of course, the gentleman who is aiding and abetting in the production of the program today is Mr. Mike Rogers. Thanks for coming in here and getting in early to help set up.
Aiding, abetting, and troublemaking everywhere and always.
That's right. So that's what we're here for.
And I've been a little bit of everywhere and always this last couple of weeks because I've been on vacation from real work. But somehow politics filled all the gaps.
It's like work.
Yeah, it is.
They've made it like work. It's not just a hobby anymore. So, all right, well, let's start with our WTF, and I think the biggest one's probably Ben Carson. He came here. You have a post that's going to be going up. You've already kind of hinted at some of the stuff that was going on this week. He came to New Hampshire on was it the last day to register?
The very last day to file. I've called it Remainder Day at the State House. There was a guy in a sweater from the city of brotherly love talking about love, peace, and the people and the police being nice to each other. There was a old Southern Democrat. I thought at first old-fashioned. Then I read his policy platform. It's so far to the left that it would make Bernie Sanders jealous. I shall post links. Morning, Don. And Vermin Supreme came in, talked about his platform, which was no hope, no change, and bitter disappointment, but how he was going to create the pony economy and ponytopia.
Yes.
Not sure whether that means everybody shoveling up horse droppings from the street. He didn't go that far. He also had a empty holster strapped to his Wellington boot headgear, complaining that due to the Ben Carson security screening, he was unable to open carry into the State House.
Hey, Don. You can't hear. Don can't hear anything. He's on 3. Can you turn him up a little bit?
1, 2.
How's that? Can you hear anything now?
I can hear Don now.
Can you hear us? Maybe he's not plugged in.
Maybe it's just me.
Maybe it's just me.
Heaven knows I'm deaf.
You don't hear anything?
Okay.
Oh. Let's follow his cord and see if he's plugged in. He should be, but anyway, because we can definitely hear him out of the board. So, Ben came to town. He didn't have a great experience.
No, it was pretty interesting. First of all, there was a pre-game show at Tandy's Top Shelf, and the folks over there said he didn't make it to that. There seemed to be an interminable wait at the State House, too, even though the Carson bus was right outside.
I think so.
You think so? You think you can hear us?
Yeah, okay, well, it's on max for that outlet.
Can't quite tell you why it doesn't work so well. Anyway, so keep going.
So that's that was interesting in and of itself. He worked the crowd down the hallway, very affable, very personable, charming as always. Came in very smoothly, handled the filing, and on to the inner sanctum where the press were waiting to grill him. First up was the question about Donald Trump and saying that there ought to be a database of Muslims so we can track them all. And Carson immediately responded that there ought to be a database on everybody, and further expanded. So what about citizens? Oh, we should already have a database of those. So there you have it. Whatever else he is, when he thinks off the cuff, the Constitution is not attached anywhere.
That's not good.
No.
So there was...
My long-term observation of Dr. Carson is he's a good man, and obviously a gifted surgeon, and great in his specialty. Good man, fine wife, good Christian, all those things. But anytime you just ask him a question and he responds off the cuff, it doesn't come out anything close to conservative or constitutional. Basically, I think that he should stick to his specialty or his golf.
So they basically took a guy off the street without any, constitutional studies or knowledge or any of that stuff, and he...
Somebody stretched his 15 minutes of fame, and it's getting a little ragged.
Well, I mean, he did... A lot of people pushed him and pushed him and pushed him and pushed him and pushed him to try and run, and I think initially he had no interest in it, but, when people with money and influence and a lot of voices keep nagging you to do something, I mean, I think if they just let him be...
Yeah,
well, he never would have entered the race.
When people who got money by selling your name, which is basically the same way he got money, by selling his name and his books, push you hard enough and you get into the race, and then you find out that all there is the marketing.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what it came down to.
Like I said, he's a really nice guy. If I played golf, I'd probably be happy to play golf with him. I'd probably be happy to go to his church.
Could be his publisher said, hey, if you run for president, we'll sell more books.
But let's put this way, guys. After a couple of weeks following politicians around and going to several filings, I can tell you that Jim Gilmore is way more qualified to be president than Ben Carson.
Well, he was governor.
And he's got a whole lot better policy positions, much better thought out, and he can spout them if you tap him on the shoulder, and he doesn't go off into the weeds.
Well, he has plenty of experience in government. He understands both the federal and the state level. So
and you could say that makes him an establishment guy. Except he's also got a good set of policies, which are all about economic growth and national security, which actually makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you go chasing Dr. Carson's webpage, the policy pages are pretty thin, to put it mildly, and the rest of it is what he says when you ask him a question.
Well, as you pointed out, he's already peaked. He's starting to decline. As we pointed out in the news read, he is now third in New Hampshire, maybe lower than that, maybe fourth. He's definitely on the slide.
At best, he's level with Cruz, who is definitely rising.
Nationally, yes. In New Hampshire, though, he's below Cruz.
Yeah.
So.
And one of my the phrases I coined is slowly, catchy Trumpy. As opposed to catchy monkey, which is, by being stealthy and cautious. I think Ted Cruz is going to catch up with Trump over the next few months. I don't know yet whether there's going to be any kind of alliance between those two guys. That would be an interesting speculation. But I think that Cruz is doing all the right things. He's building the organization slowly. He's got more small donors than anybody except for maybe the Tea Party group behind Carson. He's got the funding to run his organization, and he does so in a very lean manner.
Don? Hi.
So, I've rambled for too long. Don, welcome. What you think?
Good morning. I think that, our focus has to be on the primary, where, of course, I would prefer Ted Cruz as well. I think I, however, wonder whether or not the establishment's going to line up and support him. I mean, I realize everybody held up their hands, but I think we're very very vulnerable in the general election for Republican establishment to say, well, Hillary Clinton will keep all the good times rolling and fill our coffers. It's not who I picked, but
you mean they'd Goldwater him?
Yes, I'm concerned about that, and I'm also concerned that if we were to get a President Cruz, which I personally would prefer, how are we going to be able to make how is he going to be able to make the changes that I think we all want in a legislature with a Congress where the Senate is back in the hands of the Democrats? They've stopped anything constructive from being done with the Republicans in a majority.
Well, he can do a lot to undo the executive nonsense.
He can do a lot because he can enforce the existing laws and he can rescind executive orders and
get rid of the czars.
Yes.
If he takes care of the
bureaucratic stuff at the EPA. And
am I on, Steve?
You're on.
Yeah. If he takes care to simply faithfully execute the laws, he can cut the departments down to size dramatically because they are nowhere near faithfully executing the laws. So I think that's something he can do without action by Congress. But the other thing is he could borrow a page out of Fiorina's book. And in my weekly radio address, I will name the issue of the week and ask you to press 1 for yes, 2 for no on your smartphone. There's an app for that. I'm just quoting, but
she has said that, yes.
Yeah, you get the point.
I agree with that. If he does his weekly fireside chats, or something, and he gets the people behind him, but Harry Reid doesn't care what, and the Democrat leaders, whoever's going to take over, they don't care what the people want. Just like most of the establishment Republicans don't. Otherwise, we would have the border closed 20, 30 years ago, right?
Democrat leaders like Mitch McConnell.
Yes, right.
We are going to take a really short break. Hang on, and we'll be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
GrokTALK.
Excuse me. It is GrokTALK from Concord, New Hampshire. Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Ustream, GraniteGrok.com. Please visit cnht.org. The Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers, kind enough to allow us to use the space to bring you the program. Here with Mike Rogers and Don Ewing, we are talking about Ben Carson and some local politics, but the national flavor, because obviously it's about a presidential election. Coming up, Aaron Day, 9:30, so stay tuned. I'm sorry, please go ahead.
So I had an interesting couple of weeks because, like I said, I took some vacation and it somehow filled up with politics because that's the way stuff goes. So I followed Jim Gilmore around on Monday the 9th. It was pretty interesting and entertaining, and he deserves better than being an asterisk, but I don't think he's going to really climb out of the hole. I was at the Ted Cruz Filing and 603 Alliance press conference. And he mentioned the 603 Alliance quite a bit, even on his press conference inside the Secretary of State's office, which was really good. And I think Ted Cruz is making his mark, and he's worrying the establishment, as you said. I was at the New Hampshire Federation of Republican Women annual meeting and luncheon.
Carly Fiorina, yes.
Where Carly Fiorina spoke to the group. Gave one of her typical but never quite the same speeches, and then took questions. Last question up, yours truly asked about her relationships with the NSA, CIA, etc., and essentially, should we be concerned for our Fourth Amendment? First response was, "Are you a tracker, sir?" Because I'm sitting there with my little camera on a monopod. She recognized the shirt. Gave a pretty good answer, actually. Not sure if it'll satisfy our...
You're a conservative tracker.
Yeah. Not sure it'll satisfy our hardest core libertarians, but it wasn't bad. So, good Q&A. Now, there's a person you can ask anything you want anytime, and you'll get a crisp, clear answer. Doesn't seem to be flapped at all. Nor does Cruz ever seem to be flapped by the questions. These are the people that really know how to handle a crowd. And then there's Trump.
He's always got an answer.
Trump defies gravity, frankly, because he's not dependent on the media in the traditional sense. They don't seem to be able to shoot him out of the air. He's defying gravity. I'm not quite sure what kind of material his hoverboard's made out of, but that guy is up there. He's tapping a nerve, an emotion, and he's hitting it pretty good.
He is. I'm just clicking on things as we go here.
Right.
So yeah,
sorry,
who else?
Shut up.
Oh no, please do. You need to fill in for Skip. He talks a lot. Skip, you talk a lot. We need you here. But good luck with your little adventure this morning.
I usually get accused of talking too much, so.
No, we need you to talk today. So we have let's see, who else has been here, candidate-wise? Rubio's been doing better.
Yeah, well, Rubio is emerging as the establishment fallback position, I think, because of his links to the insiders, maybe being a protege of Bush, his positions on immigration and some other things, and he seemed to have gone more DC than most of the others from the Tea Party crop. When I first heard Rubio speak, I thought he is the second coming of Reagan, and then he got to Washington, and we learned that he was more like the second coming of Mitch McConnell. It's unfortunate. So as the various others fade, and as some of them may get, if we're lucky, booted off the stage, I'm thinking Kasich. It was interesting that focus group said bring back Christie because he's feisty and he's not boring like Kasich. What I could see, depending on whether Bush's money is able to rescue him, is the establishment will be a battle between Christie and Rubio. Not because Christie's doing so great in the polls right now, but because he's actually the better personality on the stage when he's unleashed. And apologies to some of the others like Gilmore, like Pataki, and fine people that really don't stand a chance and ought to know when to fold their tents. But
it comes down to money and ego, I guess. Really, when you get to the end, you've still got some money to run your campaign. You've still got people on the ground who aren't abandoning you. You feel, and a lot of people have donated money to you, so you almost kind of feel obligated to not just say, well, sorry, you gave me X millions of dollars, but I'm not going to run for president anymore.
No, I get that. And I've had some discussions with Jim Rubens, and I know he's not everybody's flavor of the month, but he's an interesting character. About the Senate races, the prior one and the current one, and there's a certain threshold you cross. He said, if everybody gets together ahead of time and says, this is the person best suited to primary X to keep the seat in conservative hands, or this is the person best placed to take on Jeanne Shaheen, and you actually have an agreement and that person gets support and goes forward, you're okay. But once you get to the point where 2 or 3 people are in the race, and as you say, they've committed time, their ego's wound up, probably cranked up to 11, and they've got donors, they're not going to get out. And basically, that was the point he was making. Is if you can come to an agreement as to who the conservative challenger should be for Ayotte, for example, then you may have one person running. If that doesn't happen, and you have several people enter the race, nobody's getting out. And that's what happened with the Jim Rubens, Bob Smith, Karen Testament, Scott Brown race. The only person getting out was Karen Testament, whose numbers were basically at the low end of the chart anyway. And then what you had was sort of 24, 51, basically, between the three running, and well, the rest is history.
Yep, we got stuck with Scott Brown for a candidate, and we stuck the NHGOP for making sure he was in the race. So it's the way it goes. And that's going to happen to Ayotte. We talk about it every week. We don't see any way that she wins.
No. Every time I get a letter from the campaign, I write back and I say, when you pick a candidate that can win, you may get some contribution from me.
But, again, there doesn't appear to be any viable conservative challenger at this point, and the only person we really know of who is going to run against her is our next guest, and that's as a third-party candidate. So that'll make things interesting if we don't actually come up with a conservative Republican everybody can get behind to primary Senator Ayotte.
What if the third party won?
Wouldn't that be funny?
Wouldn't that be funny?
Everybody, see, that's not going to happen, though, because the establishment is not going to bail on Ayotte.
No, they're not.
And
Mitch McConnell's not going to bail on Ayotte as
she's been working hard down there to make connections with all the wrong people so that, she can be a conduit from New Hampshire to Washington, D.C.
Isn't there a song about friends in low places?
Yes, there is. I actually think I have it on here somewhere.
Well, if you find it, great. If not, we'll have to find it and put it up with one of our posts. Because that's basically what it amounts to. As one of McConnell's trusted lieutenants, that is, trusted to vote the way her constituents don't want, Ayotte is going to be able to tap into a huge war chest, not just hers, but Mitch's, in order to secure her re-election, because he's not up for re-election this time, having beaten Matt Bevin, the Tea Party challenger, and managed to beat off the Democrat as well. McConnell is still running the Senate. Or is it McConnell's running the Senate for Harry Reid?
He pretty much appears to be. That'd be my take.
And just to prove that the challenger wasn't all wet, of course, Matt Bevin went on to pound the Democrat to smithereens and take the governor's mansion in Kentucky. Yay.
Yes, that it was a good thing. Sorry, I'm looking for that song while I'm talking to you.
You got friends in low places?
Yeah, I have it here somewhere. I do.
We should put that up along with Tom's picture of sidecar buddies.
Yes, I got to find that song now. I got to find it. I only have like a minute. I don't know if I'm going to find it. I don't remember who sings it. Who sings it? Anybody remember who sings it? Somebody email us. Who the heck sings that song? Friends in Low Places. It's a country singer, male. I don't have that many of those in here. So.
Alan Jackson?
Oh, maybe. Come on, man. All right, I'm not going to find it right away. So anyway, I had it segregated out for something else that I was working on, but we're not going to find it. Okay, we're going to be right back. We got to take a break. We'll be back with Aaron Day. Everybody, just hang in there.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
In accordance with Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, some of the material in this program is used under the Fair Use provision of federal copyright law. Sound effects were either created by the producers of the program, found free in the public domain, or are covered under Attribution 3.0. Most of the music on this program comes courtesy of Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
GrokTALK comes to you live almost every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. You can also listen live at Spreaker.com. If you missed a live show, catch up with the podcast at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, on Stitcher Radio, at iTunes, TuneIn, or iHeartRadio, and now on The Rock, New Hampshire's Christian radio station, The Rock, NHCR.com. GrokTALK is a mobile-ready broadcast, so you can listen anywhere, anytime on your PC, laptop, tablet, or smartphone.
Talk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GrokTALK.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com.
GrokTALK.
All right. We are GrokTALK, coming to you from Concord, New Hampshire. Check us out on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Ustream. There are hundreds and hundreds of hours of interviews and commentary on the culture and the world and news and politics and, yeah, sometimes the weather, even though I often say we don't cover the weather. But it's all out there for you to check out. All you Democrat trackers, make sure you go just look for them, and you can find some outrageous thing that somebody who's not a liberal said, and you can use it, and make sure you link back, please, because that's what we want you to do. So, we're going to move forward.
Just look up any of us by name. You'll find outrageous things.
Yeah, and we're going to see if we can create some new outrage for you, because we have Aaron Day on the line with us. Aaron, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well.
Let me mess around with your volume here, because you sound like you're far, far away.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's try something here. See if we can get a better signal from you. All right, so Aaron Day is the chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus of New Hampshire. As a matter of disclosure, I have served on the board of the RLCNH briefly, but I know Aaron. Aaron and I communicate on occasion, and he has had this fabulous idea, which he's going to explain to us. Tell us about...
Sure. Well, the idea really relates to Kelly Ayotte, and, the short version of it is I've vowed to run against Kelly Ayotte in the general election as an independent if the Republican-controlled legislature reauthorizes Obamacare Medicaid expansion.
And this is a pretty good idea, because we know we've had conversations recently about how it's we know they want to pass it. They instituted it in the first place. The majority legislature is excited about the idea of working on a way to expand Medicaid in New Hampshire, and we also know that they want to do it before Chris Sununu has a shot at becoming governor, because they don't want to leave it in his lap.
Well, that's exactly right, but more importantly, because a lot of people ask the question, well, why go after Kelly Ayotte? After all, she's a U.S. senator, and what does she have to do with our state legislature? And the reality is, we would not be in this position had Bill O'Brien been elected Speaker of the House, and in fact, he was elected Speaker by the Republican caucus, but it was because of Kelly Ayotte's interference that the Democrats ended up selecting with a minority of Republicans, Sean Jasper, who's our new Speaker. So I hold Kelly Ayotte singularly responsible for Medicaid expansion. She never should have meddled in this area, and as a result, we now have this situation that we're dealing with. But I will tell you this, it doesn't end there. I actually have candidates. I mean, this is clearly the nuclear option, but I've been talking to people that are potential independent candidates to run for governor, CD1 and CD2, as we continue to escalate this. Because, and one of the things you mentioned, I am the chair of the Republican Liberty Caucus of New Hampshire, so obviously this is a pretty provocative situation for me. I would have to leave the Republican Party in order to do this. But from my perspective, if the Republicans are going to proactively promote and expand Obamacare, I don't see any difference between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party.
There isn't really appear to be one. I mean, we sent them Ginta and Ayotte. We sent them to Washington, D.C., and I mean, there's some differences, but they didn't stop the expansion of government. Since 2008, we've given them a couple shots, and we've doubled the debt to $20 trillion. I mean, I don't know that if you're going to vote for Republicans who are just going to do the Democrats' dirty work for them, what's the point?
Right. I mean, let's not forget the most famous anecdote of Ted Cruz, which is the time they wanted to raise the debt ceiling, and the Republican leadership wanted their folks to do unanimous consent of a rule change so that then it would only need Democrats to vote for it. Because after we've given the thing a push, it'll only have their fingerprints on it. You know, and this is the kind of stuff they do all the time. If they would just stand up, they could stop anything in the Senate, but they don't.
I agree, and this goes back to, I just found a chart that showed that, you know, and I'd forgotten about this. Obamacare is the only massive entitlement program that was passed with absolutely no bipartisan support. At the time, it was 100% Democrat. What I'm trying to figure out is, what happened to the outrage? What happened to the Tea Party groups and all the town halls and all that excitement, all that enthusiasm from 2010, which, by the way, Kelly Ayotte certainly took advantage of to help her get originally elected? How do we go from that to now Republicans pushing the legislation? To me, there's something fundamentally wrong here, and I think we in 2016, in particular in New Hampshire, because one of the interesting things about this race for Kelly Ayotte is it's one of only 3 toss-up seats for the United States Senate. It is conceivable that if Kelly Ayotte loses, it could be the swing decision that determines whether or not the Republicans or the Democrats control the United States Senate.
Yeah, I think it could be, Aaron. And, you know, the Tea Party hasn't gone away. You know, the press like to say the Tea Party is dead, whatever happened to the Tea Party. It came out in name in 2010, and there was a Republican wave. It came out as conservative grassroots in 2014, and there was a Republican wave. It came out this year, and there was a Republican wave. The Democrats are losing state houses in droves as a result of this. And yet, and we send a few good Republicans to D.C., like Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, a couple of others. But too many get co-opted, and the problem is the D.C. swamp is still a swamp. It's still infested with malaria and plague. It's not a tumor. It's a plague.
It's not a tumor. I didn't play that on cue. I'm sorry. I think some of I don't know, maybe you'll agree with me. The RLCNH is a pretty stable organization, generally speaking. I don't know about all the state chapters. I think there's probably some difference. But in New Hampshire, the original New Hampshire Tea Party Coalition was kind of co-opted. I mean, everybody eventually got in, but then a lot of other groups went off to do their own thing like they always do. And then, the NHTPC at the current point is really just one person who does all the talking for that group, and they have a very specific libertarian agenda in this particular example. But so a lot of people aren't going to rally behind that. They're not, this particular Tea Party group, they're not doing events. They're not backing candidates. They're not out. I mean, that's what people are looking for. So you don't have any activism. So we have a supposed statewide Tea Party group that doesn't do anything except talk about it. And I think people are looking for some groups that actually do something, kind of like you're doing.
Or like the 6 of 3 Alliance is doing, which is to try and get the grassroots together and figure out who the best conservative candidate is, or in your case, the libertarian-leading conservative Republican candidate.
Yeah, well, I agree. And I think the more our groups can work together, and, speaking of this Ayotte situation, obviously my main goal is I really do not want to go to Washington as the independent United States senator. I'm certainly still, fully supporting this idea of trying to consolidate behind one great candidate in the primary as well. I think these are things that can be done at the same time. And, hopefully there is a way to get the Tea Party groups that are out there, the 6 of 3 Alliance, and get all of our organizations working together. Because I think this is our year. I'm not by any stretch a fan of Trump, but I do think Trump represents kind of the absolute hatred of the establishment. I mean, I think if you look at where I think I see Ted Cruz now is pulled into second, or he's tied for second. I mean, if you consider, Cruz, Carson, and Trump, that is not the ideal scenario for the establishment, who, of course, is pushing for Bush, Christie, and Kasich. And so I think this is a year for a real wave, and hopefully it actually trickles down and changes the fundamental leadership of the Republican Party in the process.
It has to, and I faintly disagree. I think they're pulling for those people that you mentioned, Aaron, but I think they're coming down to the idea that Rubio's fresh face is probably the best shot they've got for an establishment candidate. Meanwhile, you've got the ones you mentioned plus Fiorina all trying to be the outsider. If Trump makes it, their heads would explode. If Cruz makes it, they may strap their heads up tight and try and deal with it, but they won't like it at all.
No, you're right. They won't like it at all. But, and even we can see with Cruz. I mean, Ayotte has attacked Cruz. I mean, we've seen John H. Sununu attack Cruz. I mean, clearly the establishment has had it out for him in the very beginning. So I think it's an exciting year and a big opportunity.
I think so too. The establishment leaders like Sununu, who've effectively quoted the old phrase, it's time to dissolve the people and choose another.
I would agree, Aaron. I think that I know presidential elections, particularly in New Hampshire, do not favor the Republicans very well, and they may not favor them well this time. But there does seem to be a sense, as you pointed out, with Trump and Carson and Cruz, who is from D.C., but clearly they don't like him because he doesn't represent what the establishment wants to stand for. They're really stirring up the base, and I think Trump in particular, he's getting a lot of people activated in primaries and involved in registering to vote. He's like a get out the vote machine. I mean, he has people coming out and saying, you know what, I haven't voted in a while, but I'm going to vote. And if they don't get to vote for Trump, maybe they'll stick around and vote for somebody else, which would be hopefully not an establishment candidate and not just at the national level.
Yeah, I think Cruz will probably pick up a lot of those that Trump is currently getting. But you're right. He's brought out people that haven't voted in a long time. He's brought out, I think, some conservative Democrats that haven't voted in a long time, too.
Yep. Well, I hope it keeps going in this direction. And, I will say back to a bit Kelly Ayotte, I've heard that she's, of course, her name has been discussed as a potential vice presidential candidate. But I've also heard recently that she's really angling, depending upon, who wins the presidency, for U.S. Attorney General, which to me is a horrifying prospect when you consider that just this week she had to give back, I think it was $43,200 in illegal campaign contributions from Turkey. Now, this is somebody who called for Frank Ginta to resign because maybe he took some campaign contributions from his own family members, and now she's found, and I'm trying to look up what exactly the penalties are for, I don't know if they're criminal or not, for taking overseas contributions. But to me, this seems like a very hypocritical position for Kelly and possibly a very damaging one for her prospects for U.S. Attorney General.
Well, it depends. If she was going to be the AG for a Democrat like she was here, it probably wouldn't be a big deal. But we're gonna take a really short break. Stay on the line. This is GrokTALK. We will be right back after this.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter.
GrokTALK.
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah, we're back. We're back with Aaron Day, chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus of New Hampshire, talking about Kelly Ayotte.
And I didn't put the test card on during the break because we were busy talking amongst ourselves.
Well, this isn't something you do every week.
No.
That's okay. People can watch us go, it's not like we're flipping anybody the bird or anything, or swearing. We don't do that here. So,
tempting as it is with the Republican establishment.
Tempting as it is, yes. All right. So, Aaron, what else we got going on with the RLCNH?
Well, the main thrust is actually Medicaid expansion and then this Kelly Ayotte charge. Obviously, because for me, clearly, it's if this doesn't happen, if we don't stop Medicaid expansion, then I'm going to be off working on this independent campaign, unless I can recruit somebody that has an even better chance of having a bigger impact. But the plan, of course, is once we stop Medicaid expansion, then we're going to go aggressively into recruitment for the 2016 election. And, we have quite a bit of recruitment to do. We need a lot of great rep candidates, and there are going to be a lot of dynamics in the state Senate where we're going to need a large number of candidates because several people are retiring, and so that's been an issue for us to find people that have the time and meet the residency requirements to run for state Senate. So that'll be the next wave.
That's probably the most important chamber because we've got to get to, I think, a 2/3 majority there to be anything like safe, just to prevent our own people from screwing up.
Yeah, it's got to be 2/3 of people, with a majority of that 2/3 being good libertarian, conservative, pro-liberty, small government candidates. Because right now, we send 1 or 2 or 3 of them in there, which we've done, and then they begin to get sucked up into that whole upper chamber thing.
Yeah.
And, no roll calls. It's really like this inside thing where they're all buddy-buddy, and they don't...
This seems to be a problem with Senates in general. They consider
it is.
themselves to be exclusive clubs of the best that can make our decisions for us.
Well, and I'll tell you, they really do focus on collegiality more than principle. And I've been baffled by this, but where, you'll find when I've talked to various senators on issues, and some of these are people that we've backed and we've endorsed and supported heavily in the past. And I've said, look, this is clearly a, fill in the blank, crony issue. This is a government expansion issue. And I've actually gotten back the response, well, but it's important that we stick together as a group. And I find that to be unsettling, to say the least.
Yeah, we're going to hang you all as a group because we've decided that liberty and the Constitution aren't nearly as important as our great little group that we've got going on here.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now, what I'm hearing about Medicaid expansion, though, given that is the focus, if you look at what's going on just this week, United Healthcare has stated that they're, looking at very seriously pulling out of the exchange, which is a massive problem. They're the largest insurer. You've had multiple exchanges go under. You're seeing Medicaid expansion fail state after state. And what people are seeing with Medicaid expansion, because everybody jumps into this and says, oh, well, we really need to take care of the poor. Well, Medicaid expansion just covers people from 100 to 138% of the poverty level. And what you find is that most of the people that actually are taking advantage of it are single, able-bodied, and at least half of them have jobs. In fact, 45% actually self-report that they have jobs, but you know that it's significantly higher than that. So we're literally just giving money to people that don't need it, and in most cases are able to buy their own insurance privately. It is absolutely unbelievable with $18 trillion worth of debt that we think that this is a good idea.
And it doesn't work, and the doctors won't take them, and the deductibles are sky high. And more of them are figuring out that they're better off for several years yet, even in the escalating fines, paying the fine and just paying as you go, going to the urgent care, paying cash, because there is no care available. The emergency rooms can't refuse you. The hospitals can go bankrupt, but the emergency room can't refuse you. And the urgent care takes cash and isn't terribly expensive by comparison. So most of them are going insurance-free and paying as they go.
Yep, that's exactly right. And this is one of the problems that when I was arguing against this last time, one of the Jeff Bradley made a few big arguments. One of his big arguments is, well, it's going to cut down on uncompensated care. Well, we still have, at last total, $427 million worth of uncompensated care. So Medicaid expansion has done nothing for that. It also hasn't changed the utilization of the emergency room, because just because people have now Medicaid doesn't mean they're using it preemptively. They're actually just still going to the emergency room. It's just that now they have Medicaid. So it has failed on every point down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason that they go to the emergency rooms is because even if they've got this Medicaid coverage, it doesn't get them to a doctor. It certainly doesn't get them to a doctor quickly. So if they got any kind of condition that's gradually getting worse, after they've made a probably half-assed attempt at getting to a doctor, they're just going to go to the emergency room and cost more money.
Yep, exactly. there's that side of it, but then there's also the corporate welfare side of this, because this has just become an opportunity for corporations to just throw their employees off of insurance and then have them pushed on to Medicaid. I mean, you can see what's happening with some large retailers and other organizations. They're cutting back the hours of their employees so that they're not, forced to cover them on the exchange. And so where do they end up? These are the people that end up on Medicaid. So it's a corporate welfare opportunity as well. So I at this point, I'm not sure why. Well, the excuse that's being used is the heroin epidemic. So I think the way Jasper and everybody's trying to reframe this is that if we don't continue to do this, then we're not going to be able to solve the heroin crisis. But there's no correlation there. That's a red herring, and we've got to push back on that heavily.
Right. I mean, heroin and other addictions have to be dealt with properly. There have to be penalties for doing whatever under the influence. There have to be treatment programs mandated if the offense was bad enough. And there has to be overdose rescue programs like using Narcan. And these are things that should be organized and funded at a state level. We shouldn't be asking for federal money. It should have nothing to do with Medicaid or Medic anything.
We had Kimberly Moore on last week to talk about this in great detail. So, yeah, it is another excuse. Not that they needed one. They would have found one anyway, I think.
Yeah, they would have. But I guess so. So from my perspective, I think we can make this very politically unpalatable. And to the extent that people are using, we need to do this because otherwise we won't be able to win the election. I think we can take that off the table, because if Sununu is going to find that he will have a valid third-party challenger, as well as CD1, CD2, and U.S. Senate, what's the motivation at this point? Because, I mean, literally, we're gonna get wiped out, and I think we just have to hammer that message.
I do. I think that these senators, they need to understand that there's going to be a challenge to their little fun party gathering that they've got going on up there, and they need to know that it's not just whether or not they win, but it's going to cost them a lot of money. That seems like the only thing they understand.
Well, they understand that, but again, on the third-party challenge, I look at this U.S. Senate race. I mean, if it's me or if I can find somebody else that has more name ID, and that's done a statewide race or even a half-state race. Right now, at least in the Ayotte race, it's dead heat. The last poll that I saw was 44% Kelly, 43% Hassan. Given how they're merging their positions, which is another thing that I don't understand about Kelly Ayotte. Why she thinks she's going to be able to move to the left. She has identical positions to Hassan. I don't know how she thinks that's a winner. But I think that, as this thing evens out even further, all I have to get is 1%, maybe 2%, 3%, and that sinks their battleship. So that's going to be, it's a real challenge, and it's a real threat that they're going to have to figure out how to deal with.
Those are the numbers that Skip has put out in the past, that if we can get 2 or 3% stolen away from the Republican, they will lose to the Democrat. The other thing that I said in the past, I think it was over Paul Hodes. If given a choice, Paul Hodes and Charlie Bass, given a choice between a real Democrat and an imitation one, the voters are going to choose the real Democrat. And so if you've got Hassan, who is the real thing, and Kelly Ayotte, who's trying to please the Democrats to get some of them to vote for her, they're still going to vote for a real Democrat if they're registered Democrats. They are not going to cross over and vote for Kelly Ayotte, and this is the thing they just don't get.
They don't. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, they don't get it, and they seem to have forgotten what happened to Frank Ginta in 2012, and Frank hasn't. I've forgotten. I've talked to him about it at length. I think Brendan Kelly got 14% of the vote, and Ginta lost by 12%. I mean, this I think they view the liberty conservative movement as Scott Brown did as well, as being so minuscule that it has no impact. And I think it actually reflects. I mean, I've seen some stats that suggest that 35% of the state identifies with libertarians, not big L libertarians, but small L libertarian views. I mean, this is not a mini movement here by any stretch of the imagination.
No, and they're just taking the totally wrong approach to getting elected. They think that there's enough Republicans that will vote for them anyway, as in asses in seats, and that they're going to get some of the mushy middle, and that's going to work. And it doesn't. They need to get the bulk of the Republicans, they need to get the grassroots activists, and they need to just do the right thing and advertise that they're doing the right thing, and some of that mushy middle will come their way anyway.
And I'm just going to jump in here because I'm reading the National Journal piece that just came out about this. And this is National Journal, of course.
Oh, this is not Easy Being Green article?
Extremely left-wing. So here it says, as her party lurches rightward in the halls of the Capitol... What? That's the... No. Okay. Has deliberately broken with Senate Republicans, most notably by publicly calling out Senator Ted Cruz for insisting on defunding Planned Parenthood. Okay, first of all, doing that is not breaking from her party. That's joining her party in the Senate. Okay? This is crazy. Ayotte, I understand the frustration of my constituents, particularly those on my side of the aisle, which is the left side of the aisle. Republicans won, and they had a very good 2014 election. They took the Senate. Voters feel like, why, then, can't we do all of these things? Well, because you're not doing them. Because you said you were going to be this way. You ran as a Tea Party Republican, and then you started walking down the left side ever since you got there.
You can put it very simply. Whenever there's a controversial issue, Kelly Ayotte will stand up and say something like, I'm voting for cloture so we can bring this to the floor and have a full debate. And at that point, it only needs 50 votes to pass, at which point she can then say, I voted for it before I voted against it, and claim that she didn't vote for whatever disaster befell us. And she does this over and over, and she thinks we're stupid.
Well, and that's precisely why my language has been, because I've talked to some people that are running for, would be running for governor or CD1 or whatever, and they said, well, look, I'm not going to support this. Why would you launch a third-party candidate in my race? Because, and the reason is for what you just mentioned. I only care about the outcome. I don't care about whether somebody tried or not. I don't care if, some people that are in the House voted the right way. There needs to be absolute momentum for, if you're in the House right now, to convince your colleagues to vote against Medicaid expansion, because the ramifications will affect everyone down ticket. And so, because that happens in the House all the time, and it happens in the Senate more often than not. Putin would do this all the time, where Jeb Bradley would convince Putin to vote a particular way on this issue, and so that it would allow Jeb to look like he's voting the right way, and have Putin take all the heat. But in exchange, Jeb would help Putin out in the next election. We've got to stop this cycle.
Yeah, the Democrats do the same thing, but they're more artful about it. Why is it that you think that we even think there's such a thing as a blue dog Democrat elected to office? Because the leadership constructs the vote in such a way that the ones that are at risk can say they voted against it. They voted against gun control. They voted against fiscal irresponsibility. They voted pro-life. They can say this because Harry Reid has stitched up enough Democrats and maybe enough Republicans to give cover for the ones that want to run for re-election. And I think that's another bit of the collegiality that goes on. They shift it around depending on who's at risk.
Aaron, we're running out of time. How do people reach you or contact you? Or
you can reach me at rlcnh.org. That's the best way to reach me, or you can just search for me on Facebook. I'm on there quite a bit.
All right. Well, thanks for... I'm sorry. Go ahead. You got a couple seconds.
And Twitter, I'm at Aaron Day Atlas.
All right. Thank you, sir. We got to go.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Good luck.
All right. Aaron Day, RLCNH. It's a threatened third-party challenge to Kelly Ayotte if the New Hampshire legislature passes Medicaid expansion, which is kind of cool. So we're going to be right back with Roger Wilkins. He's in the room. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Are you going to want to listen to GrokTALK? Because when it comes to politics, news, and the culture, we are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping, conservative bloggers, and activists. GrokTALK comes to you live Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you missed us on Saturday, catch us on Monday from 1 to 3 p.m. right here on The Rock, NHCR.com.
GrokTALk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping, conservatives, and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
All right, welcome back. GrokTALK. GraniteGrok.com. Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Visit them at cnht.org. Visit us at GraniteGrok.com. And, if you like this program, you can listen to the ones we've already done. There's a couple hundred of them. Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and a good number of them on YouTube. And the last couple are on Ustream. So, excuse me, you can catch up or check us out or do a search or, search GrokTALK and some name of some candidate or a person of interest and see if we've done an interview.
Because we have, in most cases.
We've done a lot of interviews. We're going to do another one right now. Joining us from just next door, in the room behind me, Roger Wilkins from Citizens...
Concerned Veterans for America.
Concerned Veterans for America. I've been screwing that up all morning. I've been screwing that up all morning, and I don't know why. And I go to the events, I talk to you all the time, and I'm like, well, all of a sudden have I got this problem with this Concerned Veterans for America thing. I think I even have T-shirts. I'm not sure that I got it at an event. So, and it says it right on there, Concerned Veterans for America. So
we have lots of stuff.
Lots of goodies, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So don't just go for the stuff though, because there's a lot of important things going on. VA reform being one of them. And here's Don, who's working on his studio etiquette. That's okay. Skip does that. I do that. Mike does it. We all do it. Anyway.
Yeah, I got mine on mute this morning,
welcome,
so I can concentrate.
Is that making sound? Because I'm hearing another audio signal somewhere.
My iPad's probably making sound faintly. Let me turn it down some more.
That's what I've been hearing. I mean, I like that I can see the picture and everything because it gives me an idea of what's going on. So, CVA, veterans, and VA reform.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Steve. You guys have probably heard about this issue, and I got to be honest with you, it's not that it was brought up in the last couple of years. I mean, the VA backlog has been something dogging the president since we first made noise about it publicly, and even before that. But it took an organization to form around, reformation at the VA, and that basically surrounds. The ball gets kicked off August 2013 with a press conference in front of the White House with our CEO, Pete Hegseth. And he had 26,000 names under a petition that he literally handed to the White House that day. And it was before my time opening up a New Hampshire chapter. We would open one up 6 months later in January. Understanding that New Hampshire veterans are a very strong concentration of our state, that we do have quite the political acumen, and at the end of the day, I think anybody who ignores New Hampshire on the national scene does it at his own peril. So the first things that organizations do, they definitely come on up here and they ask folks, if they want to organize, and that's what I started doing in actually December of 2013. We brought Lieutenant Colonel Steve Russell up to New Hampshire, and in essence, had him do the circuit. We had him on the radio. We had him with Jack Heath, and we had him meet with some activists that night. And in between, actually went to the civilian aid installment of Pete Burdett, who got installed to the Army Secretary of Defense. This is the New Hampshire aid, civilian aid. So, Steve saw the culture, of the SVAC, which is the State Veterans Advisory Committee, statute authority, which is different from most states. Most states have a Veterans Department of Affairs. We have a citizen body that is made up of the VSO representatives, and they advise the governor and those from the legislature who are seeking counsel from veterans. So it does go with the grain of us having a very, very citizen-run legislature, citizen-run government. So that's where the ball gets kicked off with CVA here in New Hampshire. Apologies taking so long to get on the show. However, I do think there's a reason to it. My reputation out there is that I'm a guy who hits the ground and I run. And what I had to do before I come on any radio show is I have to make sure that we have a campaign up and running, and we have support in the state and we have momentum. So we have a lot to talk about today about what New Hampshire has contributed to the dialogue. And but I do have some statistics that I want to share with everybody here.
And isn't it the case that it wasn't just that some veterans were dying, more than a few, waiting for treatment, but going back to basics, you mentioned the bureaucracy and the ineptitude. It takes forever simply to get signed up for benefits.
Yeah, well, to get the approval, right?
Yeah.
So if it's akin to picking up the phone and asking if you can see your doctor. That's all laid out when you sign up for the plan. You select your doctor, and you call up for an appointment. That triangulation, if you will, of process that's already taken care of 80% by signing up and getting the doctor, they have to go through that with their claims. So the amazing part here is that the vet has served. He was given the promise when he signed the contract. The vet has served. He gets hurt. Service connected, we're talking here. Okay? And then he is told he has to go prove it when he has the injury.
That is just so ridiculous. In the UK, if you have served, period, combat or otherwise, you can walk up to a military hospital, or your family members can, or make an appointment, and you will get served. You don't have to prove you're in the service. You have your service number that you got when you signed up in the first place that nobody ever forgets. Sure. That's all they need. They can look you up and you get served.
I think at the end of the day, you really need to look at just use the service connected. Just use the fact that this federal government is trying to take over healthcare, period. Yet the 1% of our population that's served with their lives on the line, they can't even get right. So without editorializing on Obamacare, which we could spend, and we have years. Yeah. I think you just take a look at, what do we need to do? And what we need to do is we need to fix it. And how do we fix it? We offer a plan in here. We have a booklet at CVA called Fixing Veterans Healthcare, which you can get a copy of by going to cv4a.org, and you can download it.
Well, let's put this in front of the camera for a second here. Fixing Veterans Healthcare. Let me twist it the right way. It's always more fun when you're doing this remotely.
We've had 2 summits on this in the state, one in Manchester and one up in Littleton. And I got to tell you, the one thing that came out of Littleton was the realization, as we were talking with all the vets, and we had some from White River Junction from the VA came over. It's important to note that the VA is not, it's not an enemy. It's actually part of the plan that we have in here. We're not privatizing. We're not taking away what people rely on. What we're saying is when the water's overflowing the glass, you need another glass. You need another option. If you're waiting over 90 days and you have a doctor that can take care of you, or as what came to being at the Littleton Summit was, if you're driving past the hospitals of the North Country to get to White River Junction, why can't you just pull in and go to that hospital? Mm-hmm. I mean, what is the secret? The secret over at White River that the doctors in Littleton don't know. So, but again, there are people who have great service at the VA, And it's important to say we're actually trying to better preserve that option, because right now people aren't getting that option. They're waiting over 90 days for claims to be approved.
Well, first of all, I believe that people shouldn't have to wait at all beyond what it takes to get an appointment wherever they go. And I think we need to change the mission of the VA hospitals to deal with combat-related injuries and the psychiatric disorders that accompany those. In other words, stuff that's unique to veterans that they need special help with, and make sure that they're really good at that. And even then, make sure there are outside options available on whatever the
well, it occurs to me
that
if you have an outlet for the other stuff, then the VA can focus on what it should focus on, which is these kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's more, I'm trying to find the matrix that I wanted to illustrate here. I think what's more important, it's just what you said is akin to the trap of VA choice, the choice card. A veteran is going to ask a bureaucrat for permission to go do what you and I and everybody in this room gets to do every day. Why? Why are we asking permission? Mm-hmm. There is a marketplace out there. There is a hospital down the street. Okay? And if you need to go, and we've given you the benefits for serving our country, then go. We don't need a permit. Now, if you want to, people like Al Baldessaro, one of our outspoken supporters, has said, get an ID or something. Okay, fine. If you want to, control fraud, we get an ID for being a member of the service. You show it, and then there's a billing location with VA. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Elliot sends a bill down to the VA. It says, we saw one of your vets. This is what we did. It's very simple. The VA choice requires that we belong part of a program. We have to have a card. You have to make sure it's an approved, doctor that the VA considers approved. Let's be clear. It's not that they need to be a licensed doctor, because they all have to be licensed. It's that they have to be approved by the VA. And when at the summit that Senators Ayotte and Shaheen had with Jack Heath, the question was asked, can we get the list of facilities and doctors that are approved by the VA up on the website? You should have seen the bureaucrats. They didn't know what to do. They're like, I think, maybe, it's possible. And Jack is like, why wasn't this done, back in the day? I applaud.
Because they're incompetent, because they do everything on paper, so it seems, still in filing cabinets in the basement with a sign on the door saying beware of the leopard.
And I'm trying to be, and Steve knows me very well, I'm trying to be fair in order to frame an issue here, which is more important than any politics. It's so important that we either get it right, or we're going to suffer the consequences of what kind of military we recruit. Because my son, if he were to, his grandfather, my father's now passed. I'm from a Navy family. He didn't get bad treatment, but if my son had seen how his grandfather was taken care of, and he had to wait 90 days and he had these horror stories, my son might not have gone into the tradition of being in the Navy. And that we have a couple of generations that have been in the Navy. Now, I haven't. I went to college, class of '89. My calling was to do campaigns, and I have been doing them since '92. In my defense or offense, I'm not really sure. But the fact is that I've had a lot of fun here in New Hampshire, doing what I believe and being able to do it every day. And this was really an honor to be tapped to try and find out what vets need and try to do what I can to affect change. But you guys, you do good work on, activating people's minds, on the show. So thanks. I really appreciate, us talking about this. And
let's be clear, what I was saying was not in any way meant to favor the choice card. I believe that the veterans should be able to go wherever the heck they want.
No, you're right.
And that I believe the actual veterans facilities should concentrate on more military-related problems. And even then, you should have the ability to walk into the next hospital if they're not serving you.
Look, I think that the answer is more 50,000 foot. Everybody has to remember that in a marketplace, the agents of the service will perfect their niche in the market. We have to let the marketplace take hold. If the VA, in fact, will become the place where PTSD is studied, and they can use more, a more altruistic mission coming from the people's purse rather than finding there is no market agent at the time. Okay, then maybe that's what happens. If, in fact, the VA becomes somebody who just processes the claims coming in from hospitals because that's what they want to be good at, they have to find how they partner with the outside market and let the market offer what it already does best. I mean, let's understand the concrete buildings that were built in 1921 because we did not have community health care. We did not have a system of hospitals. We had to give something to the doughboys who came back from World War I and coming back in masses like we've never seen before. So we had to build something. Marketplace wasn't there. We had to take care of them. Marketplace is there now. It's not only there, but for everybody else. They sign up when they join. Within 90 days, they get join an employer. Within 90 days, they get a network. They choose a doctor, and all they have to do now is they get sick. They call. If you had to wait 2 weeks when you're coughing, just coughing, just general maintenance, you'd be up in arms. 90 days, we're telling people. Sometimes it's even worse than that.
All right, we're going to take a really short break. Stay tuned. This is GrokTALK.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Why are you going to want to listen to GrokTALK? Because when it comes to politics, news, and the culture, we are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping, conservative bloggers, and activists. GrokTALK comes to you live Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you missed us on Saturday, catch us on Monday from 1 to 3 p.m. right here on The Rock, NHCR.com.
Okay, we're talking to Roger Wilkins, Concerned Veterans for America, New Hampshire, about the VA and reform. Coming up in the next segment, we will have Jim Simpson, investigative journalist and author, on refugee resettlement. But for now,
oh boy,
we're going to continue our discussion about the VA
with Roger Wilkins.
So yeah, I mean, there have been those who have said that they'd like to label this as privatization, and I think that what it is I think they're sticking their heads in the sand. The fact is, we're not looking to contract out. That's not even in the equation. What it is we want the dollars to follow the vet, and we want the vet to make the choice. Mm-hmm. And you want to lower barriers to enter the marketplace rather than keep them up and put all the pressure back on the bureaucrats at the VA. Look, the VA has wonderful people that work there. And I think that when someone politicizes this issue and they say that, one party is saying one thing, and we all know who I'm talking about, and I don't necessarily need to mention the name, but I can say this: vets don't appreciate it. Even the most partisan vets, they go, whoa, this is not a partisan issue. We did our time. We were promised something. We signed. Now it's time for the policymakers to draw a policy that says that, hey, we have to wake up. We're almost 100 years past due on the last time we looked at the VA model. And we have to take a look at a model that works in today's language.
Well, I've always been a fan of the voucher thing. The money follows the student, the money follows the vet. And I think early on in the discussion when people were talking about Obamacare, we kept talking about the VA being an example of government-run healthcare and how it wasn't very competent and it wasn't very good and it had all the problems that we foresaw with nationalizing or trying to nearly nationalize the rest of the healthcare system, which certainly wouldn't help the vets in the VA because they would leave the VA system to go to one that's just as bad. So we really need to help on both sides. But yeah, and then of course the the story broke about the waiting lists and the fake lists and the real lists, and then it woke a bunch of people up for about 60 seconds, and there was a bunch of outrage, and nothing else substantial really happened. So I guess my question is, how do we make something substantial happen?
Well, I do want to reframe, because folks like Governor Bush and other folks have called it a voucher program. Again, I want to bring us up above. We're not asking for permission.
Right.
We're not asking the government to give us something that already belongs to us, which is choice.
Correct.
So the dichotomy that exists as a veteran who needs help, the dichotomy is, why can't I just go to the hospital down the street?
Right.
So the point is that it's not a voucher system. We simply...
Well, it isn't. The VA is...
You don't need
the
the
VA
VA
is
to
the
solve
insurer of record, and the vet goes wherever, and they just send the bill to the VA.
Well, however the reform comes out, the fact is, calling it a proactive, like the VA choice card, it's just like a voucher. I think what's important here is Social Security. You don't have a voucher. You have a Social Security. Right? Why? Well, you're entitled to it by law. Well, when the guy signed a contract, the female, whoever, the vet signed the contract, they also had an entitlement from that point on. Service-connected injury, there you go. You don't need to go to the building that's called the VA for a doctor in there to say that, that definitely happened from shrapnel. Well, that definitely happened, And timing is important. And, I was listening to someone describe how a vet goes through the process, and they said that there is no time, and that's good. That's good. I think that what we're looking for, though, is not process. We're not looking for process. We're looking for availability. We're looking to arm the probably poor choice of words, but to enable equip the veteran with every single answer that is out there. It's it's very, very much it's like we're ignoring that there's a whole community health system out there that's already formed after 100 years, and yet we're still trying to figure out how to take care of the vet. We have them on backlog because we're trying to figure out, did you deserve your benefits? Well, I can answer that. That's pretty simple. Yeah, you did. We told you right here in your contract. So I think that at the end of the day, again, not voucher, not choice card, although those are discussions, and one is a vehicle right now of discovering the marketplace. Discovering, though? Think about it. You have to discover that Ayotte Hospital's been there. You have the president of CMC saying, I want to help, but I have no way of billing anyone.
Holy crap. I mean, you have urgent care facilities popping up everywhere
Right.
who would die to help these guys
That's
and these
right.
girls.
And so I like to say, when the water pours over, you need another glass. And it's about time that the VA understands it needs another glass. We don't want to blow up, that idea that our policymakers are concerned about our vets. Everybody's concerned about our vets, but both sides, everybody's concerned. I'm concerned that they're sticking their heads in the sand based on agendas.
So aside from right now that you seem to have to prove entitlement in general, is there in fact any discrimination? If you are a veteran and you are sick with anything, do you have to prove it's service-related in order to get it treated by the VA?
According to what and I'm not an expert, nor am I employed by the VA, so I have just basic knowledge that I've educated myself on, and what I have seen, what I have heard, is that you have to fill out a form that requires a record of the service-connected injury when you were in the military, or you can get a buddy form, which is somebody who witnessed the injury. Those are the ways that I know that you can prove, but yeah, you have to prove it.
So if you have some other problem later after your service, the VA
it can get complicated.
The VA doesn't care.
I don't want to characterize that anyone doesn't care, but the process itself aggravates finding the solution.
Right. So what I'm saying is that your contract with the government for your service in the armed forces does not include health care for life. It only includes care.
It can. It's called TRICARE. It can. You can get that depending on if you stayed in 20 years, from what I understand. Yeah. So there is an option based on your time in.
So if you're in a short while,
well, yeah. So like if it's like your job
Yeah.
for a large portion of your life, or significant portion of your life, it's like if you work for a company for 20 years and they give you a pension and a health plan.
Right. So, but basically, what
Al Balsero, by the way, is one that's educated me a lot on.
I bet he has
his experience.
Al educates a lot of people. Some of them don't like it.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, it's not automatic access to VA health care for life. You have to either have served for long enough to have earned TRICARE, or you have to have a proven injury or a proven reason for your injuries from your service.
And as I understand, they come back with a percentage of what you are disabled, a 30, a 50, a 60.
And then what? You pay the rest?
Now you're diving into casework. I got to tell you, I'd have to defer and find out for you.
Okay, we got about 4 or 5 minutes. I'm on the cv4a.org website, Veterans Independence Act.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to launch this coming year. What we're looking to do is, like I said, to lower the barriers of access for veterans into the marketplace. Al Baldacero brings up a great story. Once he went in using his TRICARE, goes into the VA, good people there, but he was told in order to look at his earache, because he has TRICARE, it can give him full breadth of coverage. He was going to have to wait a couple hours, and he said he looked at the other guys waiting. And he said, you know what, I'll defer to them. I'll let them get in a little quicker, and I'll go down and use Elliott because TRICARE allows me to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we have a vehicle that they are that
it already exists.
That
it's
exists.
In place.
That's in place.
It's already there.
And it's now there does become a cost debate. On TRICARE and what's service connected. I think that what we're focusing on right now is that they can't even take care of service connected. They've got service connected getting in the way. Somebody just served, or somebody served in Vietnam, or what have you, and they realize that they have something that's wrong. Okay, that's service connected. If it goes back to the theater in any which way, or their service in any which way.
I will have to check and see if they've changed the rules back in the United Kingdom. But it used to be, you served, you got served. It's as simple as that. Yeah. There wasn't any proof of eligibility. My wife had our children in an Air Force hospital, and she wasn't in the service anymore. That was just considered to be automatic that they would take care of her. Yeah. And we drove 40 minutes or more to get there because she'd rather be there. Sure. And the choice was open. They were willing to serve us.
Right.
No money changed hands.
No, right. I all I can say is that even in the scenarios given now, we can't even take care of what the limited offerings that we're giving. So to find a process, I think it's fairly simple. I think it's simple. It's what we're calling the Veterans Independence Act. It could end up being called something else by a congressman or a senator somewhere. But at the end of the day, we have been walking for 2 years down at Congress, and we started with year 2014, I believe. They might have done 2013, but 2014 we had a thing called Vets on the Hill, and we sent some guys down from New Hampshire, and we sent some from across the country. We had about 35. A year later, we had about 135. I don't even know what 2015 is going to look like.
Probably Jim.
Oh, hang on. Let me grab that.
Going to be on hold for a while, but that's okay. I turned my headset off so he could do his thing. I could turn off his headset. Oh, so
some stats that I want to share though for the for listening.
You got about a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah. So right now, we still have 373,198 cases pending across the country.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I mean, we have 323,251 appeals, which is up 601, and I think that's up 601 from last night. I'm not sure what the baseline is, but not last night, last week. So I'm not sure what the baseline is, but there's an increase of 601 since the last time they reported, and they report every week.
All right, we got about 30 seconds left. How do people reach you? get involved, etc., etc.
www.cv4a.org. Read us up, look us up. Wilkins at cv4a.org. It's my email, 703-5116, 603 area code.
All right, this is a great issue, and we need to have you back more often.
We're on Facebook, too.
You are. Yes,
Concerned Veterans for America, New Hampshire chapter.
They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're everywhere. We don't have a lot of time. Don't get into a long speech.
No, anytime there's major changes, major activity on the Hill, go ahead and let us know, and we'll bring you in and we'll learn all about it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. We're going to take a very, very short break at the end of this segment, and then we're going to take our little 5-minute read at the front, and then we'll be back with Jim Simpson, who's already on the phone to talk about refugee resettlement. Stay right where you are. We'll be right back.
CNHT Studios in Concord, New Hampshire. Just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House. This is
GrokTALK.
Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
GrokTALK.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
GrokTALK.
Donald Trump leads the race for the Republican nomination in New Hampshire, while Bernie Sanders edges Hillary Clinton among Democrats. That, according to the latest Fox News poll released Wednesday and conducted since Friday's terrorist attacks in Paris. Trump leads with 27% of New Hampshire Republican primary voters. Marco Rubio receives the support of 13%, just above Ted Cruz at 11%. That's it for the double-digit candidates. Jeb Bush and Ben Carson garner 9%, each followed by John Kasich at 7% and Chris Christie at 6%. GOP National Committeeman Steve Dupree should be happy to know that his support for Planned Parenthood will not be wasted. CNN reports that Planned Parenthood is planning to spend at least $20 million fighting Republicans at the ballot box next year as the group punches back against GOP efforts to end its federal funding. The group is planning to focus on the White House and Senate races in a few key states, including New Hampshire, Ohio, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. The states not only have potentially competitive Senate races, but are also key swing states on the presidential map. The $20 million will be spent on a mix of volunteer and activist organizing in each state and advertising. New Hampshire Republican National Committeeman Steve Dupree deliberately attended a Planned Parenthood Northern New England New Hampshire Action fundraiser last spring and is a self-admitted Planned Parenthood supporter. The New Hampshire Union Leader is reporting that an American teenager killed in an attack in the West Bank on Thursday had a New Hampshire connection. Many years as a camper and counselor at Camp Yavna in Northwood. Ezra Schwartz, an 18-year-old from Sharon, Mass., was one of 3 people who died when a Palestinian man fired a submachine gun from his car and then drove intentionally into pedestrians. 2 others were killed Thursday in the stabbing attack in Tel Aviv. From Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Black Lives Matter students at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill recently commandeered a town hall meeting to read off a list of 50 bizarre demands from free education for all to the abolition of the school's police forces. ABC 11 reports a mob of UNC Black Lives Matter students descended on a town hall meeting Thursday called to discuss race relations and condemned the unethical institution for its treatment of minorities and demanded action from university officials. Read more at eagnews.org. The New York Post reports that a man swinging a samurai sword fought an imaginary duel Friday on the glass spiral staircase of the bustling Apple store on Fifth Avenue in New York City as frightened tourists and computer geeks looked on. Video posted to Instagram shows the swordsman walking up the staircase and then sitting on it while performing pretend lunges and parries for his startled audience at around 3:55 p.m. Eastern Time. He was quickly tackled by Apple security and turned over to police, who took him to Bellevue Hospital for psychiatric examination. From FoxNews.com in Chicago, the first significant wintry storm of the season blanketed parts of the Midwest with a foot of snow and more was on the way Saturday, creating hazardous conditions as some travelers prepared to depart for the Thanksgiving holiday. While winter has not officially begun, the shovels and snowblowers were out from South Dakota through southern Minnesota, Iowa, and southern Wisconsin to northern Illinois and Indiana. The National Weather Service said the snow should continue in Illinois and Indiana on Saturday and move into Michigan. The front will head northeast to Canada late on Saturday and into Sunday. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.
Warning, this is not a safe space. I repeat, this is not a safe space.
GrokTALK.
All right, welcome back to Grok Talk, brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at granitegrok.com. Be sure to check this and past programs out on Spreaker Radio, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. We're also on YouTube and Ustream, and of course at granitegrok.com. We'd like to thank all our previous guests. Earlier today, Aaron Day was here with us, of course, talking about the New Hampshire Senate race. Roger Wilkins, who was just here talking about VA reform. Time to move forward to our next guest. This is Jim Simpson, investigative journalist and author. And this is probably a great week to have him on because there's a lot of talk about refugees and Syrians and the Middle East, and he's written a book about it, sort of. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Steve.
Great. Thanks for hanging on the line there. So, before we get into the specific, obviously the Syrian refugees is the huge issue this week. Give us just a little bit of background about the refugee resettlement program in general, so that people have some context for what's been going on in the last couple of months.
Okay. Well, every year we bring into the country about 70,000 people from all over the world as what they call refugees. And these people claim to have been persecuted for their religious or personal beliefs in their home country, and they apply, and usually to the UN, because the UN has pretty much taken over the selection of refugees into the United States, and they're supposedly vetted carefully, and then they are sent to the United States, and the State Department reviews the application, selects them, and then hands off those names to private resettlement contractors, which are misnamed voluntary agencies. We call them VOLAGs. And those groups decide amongst themselves where to place these refugees throughout our country. And they do it to a large extent completely outside of the public eye. They're not transparent at all. And while they are supposed to consult with local, state and local government on placement of refugees, in practice they rarely, if ever, do. And the consequence is that we have been increasingly inundated with hundreds of thousands of third world immigrants, and they receive and stay on welfare at rates far in excess of American citizens. And the VOLAGs make huge amounts of money resettling refugees, so they have been incentivized by the government to get as many refugees in as they possibly can. And so when this whole Syrian quote-unquote crisis came along, they began championing not bringing in a few thousand Syrians, but bringing in as many as 200,000 Syrians. And lest anybody say that we are not a welcoming country, the United States is the largest resettlement country in the world. We take more refugees than every other resettlement country combined. And we also spend a lot of money helping refugees in place. Currently, there's 4 million refugees in the Syrian refugee camps in Jordan, Turkey, and Lebanon, and we are spending a lot of money helping them over there, but the voluntary agencies salivating at the thought of making between $5,000 and $10,000 a head, add up the numbers, want to bring in as many as 200,000 Syrians, which the FBI director, the director of national intelligence, FBI's counterintelligence, counterterrorism chief, and even the Homeland Security secretary have said these people cannot be vetted. And so that's where we are with the current situation. But the refugee resettlement program on the whole has come under sharp criticism recently simply because we have been so inundated with so many refugees in so many places. You guys know all about that. You know what's been going on in Manchester. You know what's been going on around the state. You see that impacting your municipalities every day. A lot of people don't realize just how serious it is. They don't realize what's been going on, like, for example, in Manchester, the 82 different languages spoken at Central High School and the huge negative burden that places on the school administrators to maintain quality education when they have to figure out how to teach people that speaks 82 different languages.
Now, a couple of things. I know there's issues with assimilation. There's issues with getting them off of taxpayer support. But now, if I remember correctly, the Vologs are supposed to help with some of that because that's what they're getting paid for, but they don't really do that?
Well, what they are supposed to do and what they... Let me give you a little list here, what it says that they promise refugees. A furnished home, help with rent, health care, nutritious, affordable food, English language classes, help building job, computer, and financial literacy skills, education for their children, social services, and community support, legal services towards residency and citizenship. I mean, these are all things that they promise to refugees. Now, what they do in practice is they put a refugee in public housing or arrange housing for the refugee. They help the refugee sign up for all the different welfare benefits that they receive, which are all the welfare benefits available to American citizens, and then some additional ones besides. And then once they've worked with them for a few months and seen that they're that they've gotten themselves established, comfortable, and all those things lined up, they just leave them. And then it's left to the community to assimilate these people, to see that they continue to get the support that they get, and the Volags just leave. And the whole system is rigged, really. It's a deceptive situation. For example, refugees, they're supposed to leave them when they're self-sufficient, quote-unquote self-sufficient. However, if you look in the regulations in the Office of Refugee Resettlement under the Health and Human Services Department, the definition, it's a very special definition of self-sufficient. A refugee is self-sufficient as long as that person is not receiving cash assistance. They can still be receiving food stamps, housing subsidies, Medicaid, and even supplemental security income, yet they're supposedly considered to be self-sufficient because they're not getting welfare cash assistance.
And they're on this assistance for quite a few years after they get here, correct?
Well, For example, the Middle Eastern refugees since 2008, of those 90% remain on food stamps, 68% remain on cash subsidies. Those are Middle Eastern refugees. Over the last 5 years, of all the refugees that have come in, 56% are on Medicaid, 47% are on cash assistance, 74% are on food stamps, and 23% on public housing.
That's a lot of compassion.
It sure
well,
is.
You know, so
I wish somebody would show me that kind of compassion. And there's additional things as well. There's special grants, for example, for a home-based child care business. If a Somali woman has her own children at home, she's taking care of them, she speaks the language, some of her neighbors have kids, they want to leave them off with her, she applies for a special grant, and presto, she's a home-based child care business, and she gets a grant from the government to conduct that business. Others get help with their savings account, a one-to-one matching grant from the federal government. If you're a refugee and you establish a savings account, the government will match every dollar you save, dollar for dollar, up to $2,000.
That's pretty nice.
It's pretty nice. So I could use that kind of money.
Yeah, whatever happened to attracting the best and brightest from around the world that would come here and contribute to our society and contribute to our wealth and our tax base? These people, most of them, are never going to contribute. And you know, I believe there should be a threshold. You come to this country, you get nothing, zip, zero, nada out of any kind of benefit for 5 years until you've paid some taxes. That'll make a difference. And these organizations that are settling them, some of these are Catholic charities, but they're not out there fishing for Catholics and Protestant, or Orthodox Christians from these countries. Supposedly, refugees are people who are persecuted. We don't bring Christians in, do we?
No, we don't. And in fact, it's very interesting because the UN High Commissioner for Refugees selects most of these refugees, and they are heavily influenced by the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which is the second largest organization in the world that you've probably never heard of. It's comprised of 56 Muslim countries, and the Palestinian Authority has a major influence within the UN, and the UN selects most refugees. So, not surprisingly, in recent years, most refugees, and especially with this president's proclivities, most refugees coming to the United States are people from Muslim countries, and most of those are Muslims. We resettled a little over 2,000 Syrian refugees last year. 53 were Christians.
Wow. And by the way, isn't that where the Visit All 57 comes from?
Sorry? Oh, yeah, right. One from each country, yes.
No. As in Obama visited all 57 states.
Yeah, that's true. 57 states, that's right. He was confusing states with his buddies in the 57 Muslim countries, yeah.
All right, Jim, stay on the line. We're going to take a really short break. We'll be right back. We're talking to Jim Simpson. Stay tuned.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is GrokTALK. We're on the phone with Jim Simpson, author of Red Green Axis, the Refugees, Immigration, and the Agenda to Erase America. I'm going to read a little something from the foreword because I think we'll probably talk about this next. One of the most insidious aspects of these stealthy, subversive activities that the Muslim Brotherhood calls civilization jihad is the collaborative partnership with the hard left that enables it. We call this partnership the Red-Green Axis, the conjoining of the socialist, communist radicals and the Islamic supremacists that has made the latter's efforts in the West considerably more successful than would otherwise likely be the case. In this extraordinary study, investigative reporter Jim Simpson pulls back the curtain on a practice that has been going on for years with a view to, in President Obama's words, fundamentally transform America. That's some strong language, kind of, don't you think?
That's a pretty good summary.
It is, isn't it?
I
know when,
pulls back the hijab.
Pulls back the hijab. So we'll get into what people would call the conspiracy theory angle on this, and of course I've seen your presentation and I have your book, and so I understand. But this is a long-standing 30, 40-year program that's been going on.
Yeah. Well, the Refugee Act of 1980, authored by Teddy Kennedy and the addled Vice President Joe Biden, essentially completely changed the whole refugee resettlement process. And very much like the 1965 Immigration and Naturalization Act, it was also authored by Teddy Kennedy, or more likely his much smarter staff members. Its goal is to shift the orientation from immigrants and refugees that come here to assist and benefit the United States, assimilate and become productive members of our society, to third world nations that need the United States, need our social services, and thus become wards of the state and almost guaranteed new democratic voters. That's the whole deal. And in 1965, they passed the Immigration Naturalization Act, and Kennedy said it wouldn't change the complexion of the immigration system one iota. Well, then my question will be, well, then why on earth did you need to pass it? But of course, he was lying, as was their proclivity, as is Clinton's proclivity, as is Obama's proclivity, and it was very much designed to change the entire system to benefit Democrats, period.
And Democrats lie when their lips move, because none of their policies would be acceptable if spelled out truthfully.
Exactly right. Exactly right. That's why they lie, and that's also why their favored, pretty much only debating tactic is to destroy, attack, destroy, defame their opponents. And I've seen plenty of that personally when I go to make presentations.
I would say that this rapid embrace of Syrian refugees is certainly an extension of that. In a piece in American Thinker recently, you wrote, "The flood of Syrian refugees into Europe has been called an invasion. That is clearly an apt description. While there are certainly heart-rending stories, many coming to Europe are opportunists. 72% are men, mostly of military age. Only 15% are children and 13% women, according to the UN. Many are not destitute, paying thousands of dollars and embarking on long, expensive trips to reach Europe. Furthermore, half are not even Syrians."
Yeah, well, there you go. And actually, Europe claims that only 20% are Syrians, and there's even a chart that I use now that was put together by the BBC showing that of the top 10 origin countries of people applying for asylum in the EU, only 1/3 are Syrians. And that's just the top 10. That's not all of them. So you put it together, Syrians are certainly less than half, and as few as 20% of the people flooding Europe, and you can just watch the videos and see for yourselves. These are not people desperate, fleeing war and oppression. These people are coming in either to take advantage of the welfare system, take advantage of employment, or I think in many cases they're there for much more malevolent purposes. Witness Paris, France.
Absolutely. Or even just the long-term stealthy takeover of Western societies, which seem to be perfectly happy to throw up their arms and commit suicide.
Yep.
Even
today, excuse me, I just gave a presentation the other night, and just this week, there were 8 Syrians, 5 Pakistanis, and 1 Afghan arrested on the southwest border. 5 Syrians arrested in Honduras, 8 Syrians arrested in Germany. There was the attack in Mali that took over 20 lives. And now, this morning, there is a widespread threat of imminent attack in Belgium, and the United States has taken the highly unusual step of warning Americans in Brussels to, quote, shelter in place and remain at home, because the threat is that serious and that imminent. So the folks that are talking about how this refugee influx is something we need to open our hearts towards and stop worrying about the knee-jerk reaction of people afraid of these people they don't want in their countries. We have to be the adults and say, no, children, sit down. You're wrong. We need to take action. We need to take serious action. We need to take serious action now. The left gets its way frequently simply by yelling, screaming, and threatening. We can't allow them to get away with doing that now. We have to stand up and tell them, sit down, shut up. The adults are going to take over. We are not going to die just to make you happy.
Do you think that this has obviously put this issue in front of a lot of people who wouldn't normally be paying any attention to it, and there appears to be a majority of people who are reluctant to accept Syrian refugees? How do you view this as advancing, your cause, for example, the communication of these issues? Do you think this is going to help make people understand refugee resettlement as an idea of the left?
Well, I'll tell you something. Ever since Obama was elected, the left have become increasingly bold and increasingly stubborn and increasingly determined to promote their narrative, and any threat to their narrative is met with immediate, overwhelming pushback, and is very organized. This is really a teachable moment for America to see just how widespread and just how organized the left are in this country, that, when over half of the governors in this country, including the Democrat governor in your state, express serious concern about bringing in Syrian refugees. It's a teachable moment when the left ridicules them as having a knee-jerk reaction or just simply wanting to politicize the unfortunate results in Paris, as though that's some kind of strange, standalone event that will never affect us, has no relevance for us. It defies description. It's surreal in its detachment from reality.
Jim, we're up against a hard break. I got a break in. I'm going to let you go. How do people reach you?
Well, I write for American Thinker. I write for a bunch of different websites. They can Google my name. They can go to the Center for Security Policy, find out what's being done on refugee resettlement. You can read Ann Corcoran's website, Refugee Resettlement Watch, which is a great summary source for pretty much everything that's going on there.
All right, thanks, Jim. We got to let you go. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're out of show. Bye. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GrokTALK.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. In accordance with Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, some of the material in this program is used under the Fair Use provision of federal copyright law. Sound effects were either created by the producers of the program, found free in the public domain, or are covered under Attribution 3.0. Most of the music on this program comes courtesy of Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
GrokTALK.